All right, so for the second question, when parents always ignore the misbehavior of children, we talked a lot about how typically this is a discipline issue, but also the type of discipline that you do really matters. So, in general, when children aren't receiving a lot of discipline, they typically are getting the signal that they should keep doing that behavior because it gets them attention or other motivating factors. But even beyond just disciplining, the way that we discipline really matters. And we talked a lot about how the idea of having that heart connection is really important for disciplining your kids and helping them set up good behavioral patterns. But even more than that, good heart connections behind those patterns. And I think when we see the way that God disciplines us because he deeply loves us, that's a really good motivating factor for the way that we discipline our kids. Because we have a deep love for them, we want the best for them. And then that love is going to be the driving force and motivating factor behind how we actually deal with the problems that they're facing.
And so the first question was, how would we expect to see kids react when parents consistently respond to misbehavior with angry outbursts? Uh, I think, and particularly talking about parents in the church, I think probably a lot of kids anyway would respond, uh, at least as they grow older. Well, I'll never be like that. I'll never be like my dad. I'll never be like my mom. I want to reject them. I want to reject the things they stand for. That they're in the church, but they're angry. I want to go away from that. Maybe kind of develop something of a shrinking violet personality on the outside, but I think on the inside, somewhere these things come out. Those same angry outbursts probably do appear when they're the person in power. Maybe their younger brother or sister or something like that. They behave the same way. I mean, I know my dad was great, but there's still some things my dad did that I would say, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to duplicate that. But then I see those things coming out in my own parenting, and I go, oops, want to change that. I think the same would happen there. And then, of course, also, if, people step away, if there's a lack of discipline, then I think that, whatever undisciplined behavior would be encouraged, and likely they would be. The kids would be seeking attention, from teachers, from anyone who, want would actually, almost hoping for someone that would step in and put them on the right path. That somebody that that cares enough to stop them from destroying their own lives.
Okay, when church parents always respond to misbehavior with angry outbursts, the first thing that pops out in my mind to that is that we have a parent issue, not a child issue. What I would expect to see if I carefully observe their children, because children are different, and there's so many different factors in personalities, the relationship, what life situations are going on. We could see a variety of things, from mimicking parents to continued outbursts to turning from Christ to emotional disconnects. But ultimately, whatever it is, it's not going to be productive. And I think that starts with the parent, and the word always really resonated with me. The second question, when church parents always, again, that word, ignore the misbehavior of children, the first thing that I look at is the parent as the leader and the tempo in the home to be the example of Christ. And so, again, in this factor, what I automatically see as misbehavior is, in most cases, when it's not physiological, it's due to some sort of uh, disconnect in the home or in the life of that child. And since, depending on their age or level of communication, kids don't know how to communicate like we do, it truly is incumbent on the parent to take a godly role to let that child see Christ in them. And what I would expect to see if I carefully observe those children would be some of the same things. I think one of the greatest risks we would see is children who are empowered to serve themselves. If there are no barriers and there are no limitations, the child will create a life without limitation and no barriers that ultimately serves the child and not God, based on the example set by the parent. Thank you.
All right. We had a good discussion today, guys, and I would agree with what you've said and my thought there. When church parents always respond to misbehavior with angry outbursts, what we'd expect to see if we carefully look, we'd expect to see children, like has been said, with a heart issue, with a disconnect with the parent. The parent has a heart issue, and the child has disconnected from that parent because there's no relationship. There's only rules, there's only anger, there's only pain. And so we tend to pull away from pain and anger and those sorts of things. And so kids are going to wind up, I think if we were to look carefully, we would see, like Mike just said, an issue in the home, a disconnect between parent and child. And I think that flows over into the children's relationship with God, because they see God much like they see their parents, especially the father. And so we would see a child who is distant from God if they are also, if they were exposed to those angry outbursts repeatedly at home. Children that have no behavior, have no misbehavior, discipline and consequences, we're going to see, and at least in my opinion, one of two things. You're going to either see kids that just run wild and have no boundaries, like Mike just said, and I would agree with that, or the other side of it would be pharisaical, legalistic kids that want to check every box and have to be perfect and just beat themselves up with perfectionism, and neither one of those is healthy. It points to a heart disconnect. And so I would say relationship with our kids is about discipline, but discipline is about loving them and showing them that we truly love them. We can't discipline until we love. We can't discipline if we don't disciple. We can't discipline if we don't build that relationship. So